Shadow finally arrived at a strange and towering structure, pointing out to everyone that this was the very place they had been searching for. He explained that once they entered, an NPC would appear to test them with a challenge. The twist was that this NPC was no ordinary opponent, its strength scaled with theirs. The harder they fought, the more it would counter them with even fiercer enemies. Shadow suggested they take advantage of this mechanic by letting the lower-level players handle most of the fighting. He himself would only tap into a fraction of his power, just 1%, while planning for the team to take down the golden tier boss and come out wealthy once again. But when he turned around, he noticed something unsettling. Meg and the others looked completely drained, their expressions almost lifeless. The silence was broken when Meg stirred from the ground, his trembling hands still visible. He reassured Shadow that they'd see the mission through, no matter what. Without wasting more time, Shadow pushed forward toward the entrance, reminding the team that clearing the challenges would reward them with valuable items from the NPC. Still, he warned them to keep their strategy discussions within the team channel, since the NPC could adapt to any overheard plan. With those final words, he heaved open the colossal doors, their hinges screeching as the passage revealed itself. Inside floated a wizard-like NPC, suspended above the floor. He greeted them with a mocking tone, addressing them as mortals abandoned by the gods. The wizard spoke of how this game had filled humanity with dread, a fear that amused him greatly. He laughed and introduced the place as the Tower of Divine Authority, explaining that anyone who conquered its trials would earn the right to trade with the Wanderer. Whenever they were ready, they only had to say the word. Some players whispered in disbelief that NPCs could be this lifelike, while others wondered anxiously about the boss they'd faced. Shadow had no patience for endless questions, telling them bluntly to follow his lead. Yet the adventurers persisted, asking how long the fight would last, what phases the boss had, whether it had instant kill abilities, its agility, weak points, or signature moves. Meg quietly admitted he was cautious because of his past, when his former squad had been wiped out by monsters. But Shadow had heard enough. Irritated, he strode up to the Wanderer and declared that he was ready to begin. Meg rushed to stop him, but it was too late. The Wanderer grinned and announced the start of the trial. A purple rift tore open beneath them, summoning a grotesque creature split in half, the obsidian shard skull puppet, a level 20 golden tier boss. Shock rippled through the team. Until now, they had only encountered monsters no higher than level 11. The skull puppet lunged forward, and Shadow urged everyone to stay calm and focused. Meg braced himself behind his shield, but one adventurer was immediately swallowed whole. The beast slammed into Meg with terrifying force, tossing him backward and nearly destabilizing Shadow as well. The squad faltered, but Meg shouted for the archer to fire his starry shot while the swordsmen coordinated their strikes. Their attacks landed, chipping away at the monster's health, but it wasn't nearly enough. The creature roared as its body flared with a sinister purple aura entering its second phase. Shadow instantly recognized the berserk transformation and ordered the others to step aside. If they valued their lives, they needed to let him finish this. With incredible speed, Shadow drew a dagger from his inventory and hurled it straight into the skull puppet, the strike inflicting a massive 14,500 damage. Without pausing, he unleashed his knight techniques again and again, his every move flawless and precise. The adventurers stood in awe. His equipment and combat mastery were on a level they had never seen before. Even the Wanderer, who had dismissed Shadow as a rookie, was caught off guard. Curious, one of the adventurers asked how Shadow had known that stronger performance would yield higher value rewards. Shadow simply replied that this forsaken world was full of buried secrets, and hinted that they should reflect on whether they had truly been exploring it deeply enough. Their doubts were cut short when the skull puppet began charging a deadly death beam, condensing a glowing yellow sphere of energy in its maw. Shadow warned them that when it hit, 3 seconds later the area of effect blast would be fatal. The players scattered. Meg sprinted to Shadow's side, but there was no time to dodge. Shadow ordered him to activate his invincibility shield. Meg obeyed, and the barrier saved them just as the explosion shook the ground. Once the flames subsided, Shadow called for everyone to unleash their strongest skills. Together, their combined assault dealt over 25,000 damage, and finally the monster collapsed. A notification appeared: the obsidian shard skull puppet had been slain. Congratulations flashed across their screens, filling the group with pride. Yet Shadow knew the truth: below 70% health, the boss would have entered a berserk state. If neutralized, its strength would only match that of a silver-tier beast. The Wanderer smiled and congratulated them for passing his test, then offered a chilling reward: they could trade part of their lifespan for a divine gift. A notification revealed the NPC's true name, Wizard Wake, and a detail that he bore 6 fingers. Suddenly, his demeanor shifted. His eyes gleamed with deadly light as he struck down one player instantly, dealing an overwhelming 999 damage. Meg was horrified, but Shadow remained composed. He explained that NPCs could not normally harm players unless a sacred rule was broken. Wizard Wake's rule was to keep his extra fingers hidden. By noticing them, the players had triggered his wrath. Meg wondered if they could fight him, but Shadow shook his head. Against such divine beings, humans were nothing. The Wanderer then urged them to choose their divine tomes and trade years of life in return. These entities, he explained, were bound by ancient laws, cast into this world to exploit the lifespan of mortals while despising the gods themselves. Meg realized in shock that they could even convert stolen life force into tangible resources. With such power, the Wanderer could conjure food, water, and supplies endlessly. The group celebrated, certain that with Shadow's guidance they were secure. But Shadow ignored their cheer, browsing through the NPC shop. He purchased Divine Bestowal, one of 9 legendary tomes that met his needs. He knew the Tower of Divine Authority had greater achievements awaiting him if he could conquer it. The price was steep: 9,000 days of lifespan. Looking straight at the NPC, Shadow declared he wanted to attempt the highest difficulty alone. The Wanderer burst into laughter, mocking his ambition. With his current strength, he couldn't hope to survive even the first trial, yet he dreamed of the ultimate test. Shadow calmly replied that he only wanted to see what it was like. The NPC explained there were 5 levels of difficulty, with the 5th being the deadliest. At that stage, the golden tier skull puppet's power was multiplied by 500% across attack, defense, health, and cooldowns. Meg and the others turned pale. If they had barely survived the standard version, how could anyone endure this? The Wanderer warned that if Shadow failed, every day of lifespan he wagered would belong to him permanently. Even so, Shadow didn't hesitate. He accepted. Laughing with malicious delight, the NPC conjured a glowing blue portal, thanking Shadow for the gift of his life essence. To him, it was proof that mortals in this forsaken game had grown arrogant enough to carve their own road to destruction. The golden portal shimmered into existence, and within moments the obsidian skull crusher emerged, its body now gleaming with a radiant gold hue. The creature wasn't the same as before. It was enhanced to terrifying extremes, its stats boosted by 5-fold, and further amplified with biological modifications that made its power spike over 2,000%. Shadow carefully studied the beast from head to toe, instantly recognizing the scale of the threat. Instead of fear, a sharp grin crossed his face. This was the perfect opportunity to test his newly acquired weapon. With a sudden flicker, his body vanished into invisibility. In silence, he drew the undead dagger and hurled it forward, lacing the strike with his venomous slash. The blade struck true, and black flames ignited across the monster's body. The golden titan shrieked in agony as Shadow's gift of the dark flame burned into it. Wasting no time, Shadow activated the bone blade's special effect. His agility skyrocketed, his invincibility briefly strengthened, and he began weaving in small, lightning-fast cuts. Then, in a flash, the bone blade's teleport effect carried him behind the skull crusher, allowing him to pierce straight into its head. The boost lasted only 5 seconds, but it was enough to make the creature bleed heavily. Watching from the sidelines, Meng and his men whispered in disbelief. How could Shadow remain invisible so long? Did he have no cooldown at all? Or was he simply so fast that he seemed to vanish completely from sight? The golden behemoth crashed to the ground, but a system prompt ordered Shadow to finish it by striking the throat. Without hesitation, he unleashed his Shadow Sneak skill, sending a flurry of blades stabbing into the monster. The health bar plummeted to 64%, yet the creature refused to die, its resilience allowing it to rise again. Shadow quickly realized this monster wouldn't fall to a single decisive blow. He would have to repeat his Shadow Sneak slashes multiple times. Even after shredding a third of its health, the Skull Crusher endured. Twice more he carved into the beast, each attack draining his stamina and forcing him to push harder. Still, the monster staggered forward, refusing to collapse. Meanwhile, the Wanderer NPC's confidence wavered. He muttered to himself, unable to fathom how a player could be this powerful when the gods' forsaken game had only just opened on this planet. The thought of Shadow's strength unsettled him deeply. But Shadow pressed on. He activated Throat Slash, a deadly ability that dealt 200% attack damage per second, stacking relentless pain on the monster. With 2 final critical slashes, the Skull Crusher's resistance shattered, and the beast fell for good. The system announced Shadow's triumph. He had conquered the 5th-level trial of the Tower of Divine Authority. His victory earned him 5 prestige points, and his achievement was broadcast across the world. Shadow also gained 10 reputation points, while the system congratulated him for being the first to complete the tower solo on the hardest difficulty. In total, his prestige now stood at 75 points. The message echoed globally. Player Shadow has conquered the Tower of Divine Authority. Players everywhere buzzed with confusion. What even was this tower? Many hadn't discovered its existence yet, and some didn't even believe such a structure could be real. Whispers spread like wildfire, but one truth was undeniable: Shadow was walking far ahead of them all. The Wanderer NPC, however, was furious. He accused Shadow of tricking him, calling humans deceitful. Had he known Shadow's capabilities, he claimed, he would have demanded an outrageous amount of lifespan for every divine book. Enraged, Wizard Wake unleashed teleportation and laser skills in frustration, shouting that he never wanted to see the humans again. Meng panicked, wondering what attack the NPC was preparing, but Shadow stood calm. He assured them it was nothing more than a teleportation array. In an instant, they were expelled from the tower, standing safely back in the outside world. Shadow reminded them of the rule: NPCs could never attack unless their sacred condition was broken. With everything wrapped up, he announced he was logging off for food. Captain Meng thanked him endlessly, promising that if such an opportunity ever arose again, they would stick by his side. Shadow simply nodded and walked away. The scene shifted to reality. Deep underwater, a massive castle glowed faintly. Inside, Shadow had exchanged 90 days of tradable lifespan to obtain all 9 divine books. He spent another 1.06 years of his life to furnish his home with luxury furniture, daily necessities, fine ingredients, and even an artificial intelligence maid. The elegant servant greeted him warmly, saying it was her honor to serve her master. She offered to handle his household affairs, assuring him he need only ask. Shadow instructed her to tidy up and prepare a feast, and without hesitation, she dove into her duties. Meanwhile, in the city above, grim news spread. Another female corpse had been found, the third in a chilling series of murders. Her limbs were severed, her eyes missing, matching the signature of the same killer. Investigators struggled, frustrated by the murderer's perfect timing and uncanny ability to evade evidence. A senior officer pressed for updates, demanding faster progress, while whispers spread among the police. One officer speculated that Shadow himself might be linked, his in-game activity aligning suspiciously with the murder's timeline. The senior dismissed it as coincidence, but the idea stuck. Rumors grew that Shadow wasn't just a prodigy in the game, but a killer shielded by dark forces in the real world. The investigator, secretly intrigued, considered pursuing the lead. Back inside the game, Shadow ventured into the ruins of the demon city. Concealed in invisibility, he approached a still-standing fortress, the Evil Spirit Academy. This platinum-grade stronghold possessed the strongest barriers in the land, and Shadow intended to claim it. Forming a guild base here cost him 2.74 years of lifespan, but it ensured his guild could teleport between safe havens with ease. Yet something felt off. He descended 3 floors into the academy without encountering a single monster. That could only mean one thing: someone had already cleared it. Soon, he heard voices. Several men had a young woman surrounded. Her eyes were wide with fear as she pleaded for them to stay back. Trapped on a bridge, the lava river blazing behind her left no escape. One of the men smirked and told her not to worry, they weren't planning to kill her. At least, not yet. He explained that Madame Dongfang had ordered them to bring her alive, so her son could have some fun. With a cruel grin, he demanded that she reveal where she lived in the real world. Otherwise, they would kill her again and again in the game until her lifespan was completely drained. He even mocked her, reminding her that suicide wouldn't work either. Their guild, Shura Hall, had already stationed people at the respawn point to catch her. The orange-haired man then leaned in with a sly smile, suggesting they could strike a deal instead. He reminded her that she had already killed Madame Dongfang twice inside the game. That alone, he calculated, must have shaved at least 30 years off Madame Dongfang's real lifespan. The woman stayed silent, clearly lost in thought. The man pressed on, telling her to hand over those 30 years and spend some time with the 3 of them. Only then would they let her walk away. Tears welled up in her eyes as she trembled, asking what exactly they planned to do with her. Their sinister smiles gave the answer until one of them shamelessly pulled down his pants, making her panic. The orange-haired man laughed, saying this was just their way of having fun. Blushing, she hesitated, then asked if they would really let her go afterward. With a cheerful grin, the orange-haired man promised, inviting her to start with him. The bald man said he would be next. Her body shook as she stepped forward, but then her eyes suddenly hardened with determination. In a flash, she pulled out a poisoned dart and lunged. But before she could land the strike, the blindfolded man unleashed his skill golden cauldron earthquake, slamming her down against the bridge with crushing force. He mocked her for being disobedient as the orange-haired man leaned closer, tongue out, demanding she open her mouth. But instead of fear, a confident smile spread across her face. In the next instant, she unleashed a devastating ability, slicing the bald man and the orange-haired one clean in half. The blindfolded man froze, shocked and confused. Before he could even process what was happening, a strip of paper conjured by the woman wrapped tightly around his neck. With terrifying power, she crushed his head like a melon. From the shadows, King Feng had been watching everything. He instantly recognized her class chain blade. After finishing them off, she even stomped the orange-haired man's groin before their bodies dissolved into glowing lifespan orbs. Her face twisted with hatred, she mocked the fallen men. King Feng noticed something else. She held the blade of the underworld. Her eyes burned with resolve as she swore to kill Dong Fang Ming. She was no ordinary player. Her hidden class, Ghost Spirit, belonged to the assassin branch, just like Shadow. In his past life, King Feng remembered, she had risen to become one of the 10 strongest players in the world. But when her identity was exposed after clashing with the Chu family of Demon City, countless forces besieged her. Even then, she slaughtered thousands before finally dying from exhaustion. Her guild had grieved deeply for her loss. Never did he imagine he'd run into her here. But one question haunted him: who exactly was this Dong Fang Ming she mentioned? In his memory, the entire Dong Fang family had already been wiped out by his own hand. Turning off his invisibility, King Feng revealed himself. But instead of relief, Ghost Spirit's reaction was hostile. Believing he was allied with the men she'd just killed, she raised her weapon to attack. King Feng quickly denied it, but she lunged forward anyway, shouting for him to prepare to die. Calm as ever, King Feng faced her as she unleashed her skill underworld chain blade. Paper strips flew out, wrapping around his body. But in that very instant, King Feng vanished into shadow, reappearing behind her. Ghost Spirit froze, shocked. Her instincts told her she was in danger, and she leapt back before disappearing into stealth. King Feng smirked, impressed that she could also turn invisible. He activated Shadow Stealth himself, vanishing as well. Minutes passed in tense silence. Ghost Spirit frowned. Her class had a built-in level 4 anti-stealth, yet she still couldn't sense him. Could it be this man was Shadow? Her suspicion grew when he suddenly appeared behind her, whispering in her ear. Panic flashed across her face. He could see her even while she was hidden. Determined to fight seriously, she unleashed her ultimate skill, Evil Ghost Soul Chase. Her chain glowed, and a small pink flame ignited above King Feng's head, locking onto him. He retreated, but no matter how far he moved, the blade followed. She explained with cold confidence, once targeted by her soul chase, no one could escape. King Feng realized her class ignored stealth entirely. She was truly dangerous. But he was cunning. He began circling around her, forcing her into her own trap. Before she could react, her own strip of paper wrapped around her, leaving her bound and helpless. Gripping the chain, King Feng declared that he was Shadow, not an enemy sent by Dong Fengming. If he had truly wanted her dead, she would already be gone. Hanging upside down, Ghost Spirit finally believed him. She asked him to let her down. King Feng agreed, but went straight to the point. Was the Dong Fang Yu. She spoke of part of the Dong Fang family from Zhang. Ghost Spirit nodded, clarifying that she had married into the Chu family, and her ties to the Dong Fang clan weren't as strong anymore. King Feng's eyes narrowed. So that was it, one fish had escaped his massacre. When Ghost Spirit realized that King Feng was the one who had annihilated the Dong Fang family, her eyes widened in shock. Ghost Spirit's heart leapt with excitement. If Shadow was also an enemy of Dong Fengyu, then that made them allies by default. She immediately told him to let her down, declaring, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend. We can work together." King Feng released the chain, dropping her to the ground. But he didn't jump straight into partnership first. He wanted answers. He asked her why she was so determined to kill Dong Fengyu. Grinding her teeth, Ghost Spirit finally revealed the truth. She wanted vengeance for her family. Her voice trembled as she recounted her tragic past. Before this cursed game appeared, Dong Fengyu had taken her mother's life in a drunk driving accident. Protected by the powerful Chu family, Dong Fengyu escaped punishment by forcing someone else to take the blame. Her father, unwilling to accept the injustice, gathered evidence against her, but the next day, his body was pulled from a river. The verdict, suicide. Desperate, Ghost Spirit had gone to confront Dong Fengyu at her house, only to be savagely beaten by Chu family guards. Hopeless and broken, she was on the verge of ending it all, when the god-forsaken game descended. Inside the game, the very first thing she did was kill Dong Fengyu. But to erase her permanently, she would need to drain every last drop of her lifespan. Dong Fengyu, however, retaliated by reviving and hiring countless hunters to pursue Ghost Spirit, leading to the ambush King Feng had just witnessed. King Feng listened quietly from beginning to end, never once interrupting. Tears streamed down Ghost Spirit's face as she begged, "Shadow, please, help me kill Dong Fengyu." But King Feng, cold and straightforward as always, refused. Her tears fell harder, and she pleaded again. Our boy studied her carefully. She wasn't the kind to surrender easily. With a sorrowful yet determined expression, she promised to give him everything she had: her lifespan, her equipment, her skills. She even offered to become his servant if only he would aid her revenge. King Feng's eyes narrowed in surprise. But instead of arrogance, he spoke with conviction. This was her revenge, and only she could deliver the final blow. He wasn't a villain, and he wouldn't rob her of that. Still, he promised to help guide her on the path to her vengeance. Confused, Ghost Spirit widened her eyes, unsure what he meant. King Feng clarified he wanted her to join his guild. If she became one of his people, he would support her until the day came to face Dong Fengyu. Right then, a system notification appeared. Shadow had invited her to join his guild. Her heart skipped. She checked the details and realized something shocking. The guild's Shadow only had one member, him. Joy lit up her face. If joining was all it took, she wouldn't hesitate. She accepted, and the system confirmed her entry. King Feng accepted her friend's request and told her there was now only one thing left: class advancement. Turning his back, he explained that she would have to figure out what it was and how to achieve it herself. Only after doing so could she return to him. Her eyes, once filled with tears, now glowed with determination. King Feng added one last warning: if she couldn't even accomplish this, then she should give up on revenge altogether. With that, he vanished into the shadows. As he disappeared, he acknowledged just how much potential her hidden class, the Blade of the Underworld, truly had. With the right guidance, she could soar far higher than she ever imagined. King Feng soon arrived deep within the Evil Spirit Academy, face to face with a level 15 platinum grade boss, the aberrant witch Stana, with multiple ghostly heads. He immediately recognized her as the guardian of the academy. In a blink, he launched himself forward, unleashing Dark Knight Ringblade. The blow struck for 26,000 damage and triggered a weak point strike. He landed calmly, recalling the mechanics of her fight. In Phase 1, only one of her four heads was active, and she was immune to physical attacks. That meant he had to rely on elemental damage, even though it dealt slightly less. Summoning his Shadow Blade, his eyes gleamed with confidence. His pale white bone blade boosted his speed, while his Shadow Blade skill refreshed its cooldown with every strike. Hundreds of blades rained down like a storm, piercing one of her heads and stacking over 200,000 damage. In moments, her golden head shattered. Unfazed, King Feng braced for Phase 2, where 3 heads would awaken at once. Her eyes glowed with fury as beams of energy shot out in wild bursts. She danced violently, lashing out with chaos. But for King Feng, dodging was effortless. Slipping through the attacks, he countered with another barrage of shadow blades, drilling into her heads for another 200,000 damage. The witch shrieked in agony. Calmly, King Feng turned his back as his final blade struck true. Her body erupted in a fiery explosion. The system announced victory. The aberrant witch Stana had been slain. Rewards: 50,000 exp and the Platinum Grade Evil Spirit Academy hideout key. But there was more. King Feng had unlocked a class advancement. A dark aura surrounded him as his shadow class rose from Tier 1 to Tier 2. His attributes skyrocketed. Strength, 9 to 27. Constitution, 9 to 27. Agility, 24 to 72. Spirit, 15 to 45. Every stat tripled, massively boosting his power, defenses, and resistances. His lifespan soared to over 4,500 years untradeable and more than 566 years tradable. He even gained a new passive, the ability to attack while staying invisible, still applying the stealth break bonus. King Feng's eyes burned with excitement. The Tier 2 Shadow had completely rewritten the rules of the game. But outside the Evil Spirit Academy, Ghost Spirit's situation took a dark turn. The men she had slain earlier had returned, and this time they brought their entire guild. The bald man sneered, saying he wouldn't be careless again. The orange-haired one grinned, boasting that all of Shura Palace had come. Now there was nowhere she could run. The bald man attacked first, smashing down with his axe in a skill called Earth Slash. She barely dodged in time. She quickly slipped into stealth, but just then boom, a flash grenade went off, blinding her and canceling her skill. Seizing the chance, the bald man kicked her down, pinning her head to the ground. With arrogance, he mocked that this time he'd really teach her a lesson. Struggling, Ghost Spirit tried to use a green vial, but the orange-haired man crushed her hand and snatched it away. It was suicide poison, sacrificing half her lifespan to instantly respawn. Laughing, he licked his lips, saying he loved how fierce she was. He leaned in and licked her cheek. But then, his eyes widened in horror as a system alert appeared. The Great Platinum Sanctuary, Evil Spirit Academy, had been claimed by the Guild Shadow. A protective barrier surged to life. Anyone not belonging to Shadow was marked as an intruder. Thunder roared, and bolts of lightning struck the men where they stood. In an instant, their bodies exploded into glowing lifespan orbs. Ghost Spirit's eyes went wide. The Evil Spirit Academy was a sanctuary, and it now belonged to their guild. That meant in just minutes, Shadow had slain the Guardian and seized the key.